There is someone thinking about you right now. Not casually, not the way people think about what to have for dinner or whether they left the window open. They are thinking about you the way the ocean thinks about the shore, constantly, endlessly, returning again and again, even when no one is watching. And yet, they are not here. They are not calling. They are not reaching out. They are staying away. And what you don't know, what no one has ever told you, is the one hidden reason why. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear might be the most important thing you have ever understood about love. There is a particular kind of silence that cuts deeper than any argument. It is not the silence of indifference. It is not the silence of a person who has stopped caring. It is the silence of someone who cares so profoundly, so completely, so overwhelmingly, that they don't know what to do with all of it. You have felt this silence, haven't you? You have sat in a room alone and felt the absence of this person like a physical weight, like gravity pulling you towards something invisible. You have checked your phone, not because you expected a message, but because some deeper part of you, some ancient animal instinct buried beneath reason and logic, told you they were thinking about you too. And they were, they are, but they are staying away. And the reason, the one hidden reason, is something that lives not in their heart, but in their deepest wound. Carl Jung once wrote that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But what he perhaps left unsaid is this: everything that pulls us away from the people we love most also leads us to the darkest and most unexamined corridors of our own interior world. The person who loves you deeply and is staying away is not doing so because love has weakened. They are staying away because love has revealed something inside them that they are terrified to face. Something they carry not from the present but from long before you ever met. Something that has nothing to do with you, and yet has everything to do with why they cannot come closer. Think about this carefully. Think about what it means to love someone so much that their presence becomes a mirror. To love someone so much that when you look at them, you do not only see them, you see yourself. You see your failures. You see your fears. You see the child you once were, who was told that love always ends in leaving. You see the younger version of yourself standing at a door that was closed too many times by too many people. When love becomes deep enough, it stops being just a feeling. It becomes an excavation, and some people are not ready to be excavated. Some people need more time in the dark before they can tolerate the kind of light that real love brings. This is not an excuse. Please hear that clearly. This is not a reason for you to diminish what you feel or to pretend that the distance doesn't hurt. It does hurt. It hurts in the way that only the truest things can hurt, not because they are wrong, but because they are so fundamentally right. The ache you feel is not a sign that love is broken. The ache you feel is the sign that love is real. And real love, the kind that does not come along every season of your life, always costs something. The question is never whether love will require something of you. The question is whether you are willing to understand what it is asking, and whether the other person is willing to begin their own long journey toward that same understanding. Let me tell you something about the person who loves you and stays away. They wake up in the morning, and their first thought is not about work, not about the day ahead, not about all the practical machinery of a functioning life. Their first thought is you. A flicker, a warmth, then almost immediately, a shadow. Because for them, joy and fear are not separate experiences. They are the same experience wearing different faces. They have learned, through years, through loss, through specific people who came into their lives and then departed in ways that left scars they never fully named, that to want something completely is to risk losing it completely. And losing you, even in the abstract, even just imagining it, is something they have already decided they cannot survive. So they protect themselves by staying away. Not because you don't matter, because you matter more than anything. There is a psychological phenomenon that therapists sometimes call the fear of engulfment. It is the terror of being absorbed, dissolved, consumed by closeness. It appears most powerfully not in people who don't know how to love, but in people who have loved so completely before and been hurt so devastatingly that their nervous system has learned to associate intimacy with danger. Their body knows it wants warmth, but their survival instincts have hardwired them to recoil from the very heat they crave. They move toward you and then pull back, Not because they are playing games, not because they are manipulating or toying with your emotions, but because there is a war happening inside them between two versions of themselves, the one who wants to love you and the one who is still trying to survive what love once did to them. You have perhaps spent nights wondering what you did wrong, turning the moments over in your mind like stones in a river, searching for the thing you said or the way you looked or the moment where something shifted. You have been measuring yourself against a silence that was never really about you, and that is perhaps the cruelest part of this entire situation. Not that someone loves you and stays away, but that their departure can so easily feel like a referendum on your worth, as if their distance is proof of your inadequacy, as if their inability to stay is evidence of your being too much, or not enough, or somehow fundamentally unlovable. And none of that is true. None of it. But the mind, when it is in pain, doesn't reach for truth. It reaches for explanation. And the story we most often tell ourselves when someone leaves is that we deserved it. You did not deserve it. I want you to let that land, fully and without qualification. Whatever happened between you and this person, whatever the shape of the distance, however long the silence has stretched, you did not do something so wrong that you deserve to be loved in hiding. You do not deserve a love that cannot speak its own name. You do not deserve to be someone's secret warmth, their private tenderness, the feeling they carry carefully in the interior of their chest but never bring into the open air. You deserve to be chosen, clearly, loudly, with full presence. And the path to that, either with this person or with the love that is still finding its way toward you, begins with understanding what is actually happening beneath the surface of this strange, painful, quietly devastating situation. The hidden reason they are staying away is this: they have not yet learned to separate love from loss. In their internal world, a world shaped by early experiences, by parents who were absent or unpredictable, by relationships that began with fire and ended with ash, by a particular wound that perhaps they have never spoken aloud to anyone, love and loss are not sequential events. They are simultaneous. They arrive together. To love is, for this person, already to grieve. Before anything has ended, they are mourning. Before you have even fully arrived in their life, they are experiencing the echo of your departure. And so they do what all wounded creatures do when they sense the approach of something that could either heal them or destroy them. They become very still. They pull inward. They go quiet. They stay away. This is not who they want to be. Please understand that. If you could see inside them, if you could read the words they never send, hear the conversations they have with themselves in the dark, feel the quality of the longing they carry for you, you would not feel abandoned. You would feel something that might be even harder to hold. You would feel grief for them. Because there is nothing lonelier in the human experience than being someone who loves deeply and cannot access that love. Nothing more isolating than being trapped on the outside of your own heart. They are not staying away from you. They are staying away from the version of themselves that your love requires them to become. And becoming that person, opening fully, trusting completely, surrendering to vulnerability without the safety net of preemptive retreat, is perhaps the hardest thing a wounded human being can ever do. Jung spoke at length about the shadow, that collection of all the parts of ourselves we have refused to acknowledge, all the feelings we have deemed too dangerous to feel, all the needs we have shamed ourselves for having. The shadow does not disappear when we ignore it. It grows. It governs us from below the surface. It shapes our choices in ways we cannot see because we are so busy looking away from it. The person who loves you and stays away is being governed by their shadow, by the part of them that learned long ago that to be seen completely is to be rejected completely, that to be fully known is to be found wanting, that the safest form of love is the love you hold but never give, because at least that way you cannot be left. At least that way, the ending is in your own hands. But here is what the shadow does not understand, what the wounded inner child who constructed all of these defenses in the first place could not have known. The ending is never truly in your own hands. You cannot preempt loss by refusing love. You can only guarantee it. Every moment you spend holding back what you feel to protect yourself from a future pain is a moment you are already experiencing the loss you were trying to avoid. To refuse presence in the name of self-protection is to choose absence, and absence, no matter how carefully chosen, is still a kind of death. It is still the thing you feared, wearing the costume of control. What would it mean, then, for this person to break through? What would it require? Not from you, not yet. From them. It would require something that the philosopher Simone Weil described as attention. Not the attention of observation or analysis, but the attention of full, open, undefended presence. It would require them to sit with their own fear without immediately converting it into distance, to feel the pull toward you, and instead of retreating, to pause in that sensation, to ask themselves not, what if this ends, but what if this begins? To understand that the life they have been protecting by staying away is not actually a life at all. It is a rehearsal for a life, a simulation of safety that has cost them the very thing that makes safety worth having. And perhaps you have wondered whether there is anything you can do, whether you should reach out or stay silent, whether your patience is wisdom or self-betrayal, whether love means waiting, or whether it means walking forward even when the other person cannot yet follow. These are not questions with clean answers, but here is what is true. You cannot love someone into readiness. You cannot be so patient, so understanding, so perfectly calibrated in your affection that you heal the wound they haven't yet agreed to look at. Love is not a treatment that you apply to another person's pain. Love is an invitation, and invitations can be accepted or declined. What you can do, what you must do, is remain honest with yourself about what you need and what you are willing to give, and how long you can offer the former without receiving the latter. There is a moment that comes in every person's life when they must make the most difficult of all choices. Not the choice between good and evil, not the choice between safety and risk, but the choice between the love that is and the love that could be. The love that is present but distant, real but withheld, felt but never spoken. And the love that is still forming, still traveling toward you through time and circumstance, a love that has not yet arrived, but that will, when it does, be ready, fully ready, unafraid, not because that person never had fear, but because they chose somewhere along the way to face it rather than let it face them. You deserve that second kind of love, but you may also, if this person is willing, truly willing, be in the presence of someone who could find their way to that. People do heal, people do grow. People do sometimes reach a point of sufficient pain that they finally turn around and face the thing they have been running from for years. And when they do, they often find that what was chasing them was not the monster they feared. It was their own longing. It was the deepest and most legitimate need of their own heart, dressed in the terrifying costume of vulnerability. And the moment they stop running and turn around, the moment they see it clearly for what it is, everything changes. But you cannot wait indefinitely on the possibility of someone else's transformation. That is not love. That is sacrifice. And sacrifice, when it becomes total and unreciprocated, eventually hollows a person out, leaves them empty in a way that even the eventual arrival of what they were waiting for cannot fully fill. Because you cannot spend years in the posture of hoping without it reshaping you, without it teaching your heart that love means waiting, that love means being patient at the edge of someone else's closed door, knocking softly, never quite sure if anyone is coming. And the heart that learns that lesson will carry it into every love that follows, even the ones that would choose differently, even the ones that would fling the door wide open if only you would believe it was possible. So let me speak now to that version of you, the one who is tired, the one who has been generous with their understanding and patient with the silence and charitable with every interpretation, the one who has talked themselves through 100 moments of doubt, who has rationalized the distance, who has held both their own love and the other person's fear with extraordinary tenderness for longer than anyone could reasonably be asked to. To that version of you, I want to say something that may feel strange, something that might even feel like a betrayal of the love you feel, but that is perhaps the most loving thing you will hear today. You are allowed to put down the weight. You are allowed to stop holding both ends of a rope that only you are pulling. You are allowed to need what you need without reducing the need to make it easier for someone else to decline it. Your longing for full, present, acknowledged, spoken, embodied love is not a demand. It is not unreasonable. It is not the sign of being too needy or too fragile or too much. It is the most human desire in existence, the desire to be loved in the open, in the daylight, with full knowledge and full presence and full willingness. You are allowed to want that. And wanting it clearly without apology may be the very thing that finally brings clarity to a situation that has been living in the grey far too long. Because clarity, even when it hurts, is the beginning of healing. The moment you stop accepting ambiguity as a substitute for love is the moment the situation must resolve itself, one way or another. Either the person who loves you from a distance will feel the shift in your energy, will sense that the door they have been quietly keeping open with one foot is beginning to close, and they will make the choice their fear has been preventing them from making, or they will not. And in that not choosing, they will have chosen. And you will know, and you will grieve it. Properly, completely, without the false comfort of uncertainty to soften the edges, and then you will begin, slowly, to live again. Grief is not the end of love. This is one of the most important things a human being can come to understand. We have been taught to think of grief as love's failure, as the evidence that something went wrong, as the tax we pay for having cared too much. But grief is love with nowhere to go. It is the continued presence of love after its object has moved beyond reach. And to grieve fully, to let yourself feel the weight of what was and what could have been, and what you wanted and what you did not receive, that is not weakness. That is the truest form of honoring what you felt. It is the acknowledgement that something real happened, that you were not imagining it, that the love was not a delusion, that the connection, however incomplete, however tangled, however much it was made of equal parts warmth and ache, was real. And now, let me tell you something about where this story can go from here. Because this is not just a story about someone who loves you from a distance. This is a story about what love does to us when it encounters its own limitations. About the way pain, when we are willing to look at it honestly, becomes the instrument of our deepest growth. About how the very wound at the center of this situation, yours, theirs, the shared wound that lives in the space between two people who care for each other and cannot quite find their way to each other, is also the portal, the place where the old version of the story ends and the new one begins. Because you are changing through this, whether you realize it or not, whether it feels like change or simply feels like pain, which is how change almost always feels when it is happening. You are developing a capacity for depth that a more comfortable life would never have given you. You are learning the difference between the love that asks nothing and the love that asks everything, and finding out which kind you truly want. You are discovering that you can survive the silence of someone else's fear without losing your own voice, that you can hold tenderness for another person's wound without abandoning your own wholeness. These are not small things. These are the qualities that define the most profound human beings who have ever lived. Jung believed that the unconscious is not merely a repository of what has been repressed. He believed it is also a source, the source, perhaps, of all genuine creativity, all meaningful connection, all true transformation. The things we have buried there are not simply obstacles. They are unfinished business that, when finally completed, become the very foundation of who we become. The person who loves you and stays away is sitting on the threshold of their own unfinished business. They have all the materials. They have the love. They have the wound. They have the capacity, even if they cannot access it yet, to build something extraordinary from both. What they need is the courage that only comes from choosing, one terrifying time, to stay. And here is what I want you to carry with you from this moment forward. Whatever happens, whether this person finds their way to you fully and completely, or whether they remain where they are, loved and loving from a distance that neither of you chose, you are not defined by whether they can stay. You are not measured by the spaces others leave around you. You are not diminished by love that could not quite speak itself into being. You are made, in fact, more of yourself by every love you have had the courage to feel, and feel fully, even when it cost you. Every person who has moved through your life and left you changed, even painfully changed, especially painfully changed, has been part of the great excavation, part of the process by which you become, slowly, painfully, magnificently, the most complete version of the person you were always meant to be. There is someone thinking about you right now. They love you in a way that their fear has not yet learned to translate into presence. They carry you in the deepest and least accessible part of themselves. And whether that love ever finds its way fully into the open air of your shared life, or whether it remains a private, quiet, unspoken thing that both of you will carry separately into whatever comes next. It was real. It is real. Love does not stop being love because it cannot find its form. It does not stop mattering because it cannot find its words. It does not stop shaping the people who carry it, long after they have parted, long after the silence has stretched into seasons and then into years. And you, who have loved someone who stays away. You, who have held your own heart with such extraordinary patience and such extraordinary pain. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are not abandoned. You are in the middle of one of the most profound experiences a human being can have. The discovery that love is not a transaction and not a guarantee and not a reward for deserving it. Love is a grace. And grace, by its very nature, cannot be earned or forced or fully understood. It can only be received with open hands and trusted completely, even when it arrives in forms you did not expect and leaves through doors you never meant to open. The hidden reason they are staying away will not stay hidden forever. Either they will name it, finally, in a moment of courage that changes everything, or time and distance will name it for them, gently and without cruelty, in the way that only endings can. But you already know the most important thing. You know that you are capable of this, of feeling this deeply, of loving this honestly, of surviving the silence and still believing, somewhere beneath the pain, that something worthy of you is still possible. That is not a small thing. That is perhaps the rarest and most precious thing in the human world. Hold on to it. Carry it gently. Do not let anyone, not even the person you love most, not even the silence they leave behind, convince you that it is not worth it.